A Course in Miracles, the text, an audiobook for inner peace and shifting perception. Chapters 1 through 5. Consider the first words you ever truly understood, the first thought that felt like your own. What if I told you that was not the beginning, but a forgetting? That before the language of this world, before the stories of a separate self, there existed within you a knowledge so complete, so silent and vast, it makes every thought you've ever had seem like a faint echo in an endless hall. We have mistaken the echo for the source, the shadow for the substance. We have built entire lives atop a single fragile question: who am I if I am here alone? This is the dream the Course in Miracles gently seeks to correct, not by adding another layer of thought, but by guiding us back to the silence before the first thought was ever conceived. Today we begin at that beginning. We open the text not as a book of rules, but as a map of return. Chapters 1 through 5 are the foundational layers of this map. They do not ask for belief, but for a specific kind of attention, a willingness to look at the very architecture of your own perception. This is the heart of Temet Nosce. To know yourself is not to catalog your passions and pains, but to trace the origin of the one who feels passionate or pained. It is to discover you are not the speaker in the hall, but the hall itself. The peace we seek is not a new state to be achieved. It is the native condition of that hall, once the echoes are recognized for what they are and allowed to fade into the silence from which they arose. So, let us begin. Let us read and listen and pause, not to accumulate information, but to practice a new kind of listening, one that hears the spaces between the words. The text speaks in a dialect of love that can sound strange to ears accustomed to the grammar of fear. It uses terms like miracle, Holy Spirit, and atonement, not as religious concepts, but as precise psychological tools for undoing an ancient knot in the mind. Approach these words as a scientist of your own consciousness, with curiosity. The journey we undertake now is the most intimate one possible, the journey from the perceived you to the actual you. The introduction and the meaning of miracles. The text opens not with a greeting, but with a stark and beautiful declaration of what is to come. This is a course in miracles. It states this plainly. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Feel the authority in that. It does not plead, it states a fact of existence much as a physics text would state the law of gravity. There is a principle of mind as real and operative as gravity, and this course is its curriculum. Your freedom lies not in denying the curriculum, but in choosing when to engage with it. The free will you treasure is intact. It is merely being redirected from building the dream to waking from it. And what is the central tool of this awakening? The miracle. But here we must let go of every cultural image we hold, the parting of seas, the healing of limbs. A miracle in the language of the Course is a correction in perception. It is not an external event, but an internal shift. It is a sudden, quiet moment where love is chosen over fear, where a grievance is released not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve the peace its release brings. The miracle does nothing on the level of form. It operates solely on the level of meaning. It is the mind's natural ability to heal itself by choosing to see differently. Miracles are habits and should be involuntary, the text tells us. This is profound. They should be as natural as breathing. The fact that they are not shows how deeply we have trained ourselves in the habit of fear. Fear is the learned response. Love, expressed through miracles, is the native tongue we have simply forgotten how to speak fluently. Every time you pause before reacting in anger, every time you offer kindness where you once would have offered judgment, you are practicing this new habit. You are speaking a word of your true language, and with each word, the vocabulary of your old world dissolves. The text introduces a pivotal idea. Revelation is intensely personal and cannot be meaningfully translated. Revelation is that direct, unimpeded experience of truth, a momentary union that transcends all perception. The miracle, however, is its carrier into the world of perception. Think of it this way. Revelation is like suddenly remembering a sublime melody that exists beyond all sound. The miracle is the first pure note you hum into the air of this world, a note that begins to tune your environment back to that forgotten song. Our work is with the note, with the miracle. We are not asked to achieve constant revelation. We are asked to become constant miracle workers, clearing the debris of misperception so that revelation may, in its own time, find a home in us. This first chapter lays the groundwork for a complete reversal of how we see cause and effect. It states there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder than another because all stem from the same source, which is infinite. To the ego, this is nonsense. Healing a headache and healing a lifetime of grief appear as vastly different tasks. But the Course is not speaking of symptoms on the level of form. It is speaking of their single, unified cause in the mind. All distress, all conflict arises from one misperception, the belief that we are separate from our source and from each other. To correct that one belief at any point is to introduce a correction across the entire system of the mind. This leads to the cornerstone idea. Perception is a choice. We believe perception is a fact, a neutral camera recording an objective world. The text tells us it is a highly selective, interpretive projector. We see what we are programmed to see, and the program was written by the part of our mind that chose separation. Projection makes perception, it states. We look inside, see a landscape of fear or guilt, and project it outward, manufacturing a world that seems to justify those very feelings. We then use that world as proof that our fear was correct all along. It is a perfect, closed loop of despair. The miracle is the decision to step outside this loop, to hand our interpretation, not the facts, but their meaning, to a different voice within. The text introduces the concept of the altar within the mind. This is not a physical place, but the innermost sanctuary of your awareness, where truth resides undisturbed. The ego's projections are like frantic, chaotic sculptures piled high upon this altar, obscuring it. Our attention is consumed by the sculptures, the dramas, the conflicts, the stories. The Holy Spirit's function is not to destroy the sculptures with fury, but simply to shift our gaze. He asks us to look past the clutter, to the altar itself, which remains pristine beneath it all. The peace of God is already there, shining. Our turmoil is not because peace is absent, but because we are actively, though unconsciously, choosing to look at the clutter instead. This is where the practice becomes practical, moment to moment. The next time you feel a surge of anger, a deep anxiety, a prick of judgment, pause. Do not get lost in the content, what he said, what she did, what might happen. Instead, recognize, I am experiencing a projection. I am looking at a sculpture I have placed on my own altar. This feeling is showing me what I believe, not what is true. This simple recognition is the first flicker of the miracle. It is the decision to question the validity of your own perceptual machinery. You are not yet at peace, but you have opened a crack in the closed loop, and a sliver of light from the altar now touches you. The escape from fear. As we transition into Chapter 2, the text deepens its diagnosis of the human condition. It names the core wound, the separation, which it also calls the tiny mad idea of the possibility of being separate from God. Please understand this metaphorically, not cosmologically. The separation is not a historical event, but a present, ongoing choice in the mind to experience itself as autonomous, fragile, and alone. It is the primal choice for an identity based on limitation. From that one choice, like a single crack spreading through glass, emanates the entire world of conflict, time, and duality we perceive. The ego is the name for the thought system that arose to defend this separate self. Its entire purpose is to prove the separation is real and to maintain it. It does this through a relentless cycle of attack and guilt. It attacks to affirm its own strength, then feels guilty for attacking, and then projects that guilt outward to justify further attack. It is a machine that runs on fear, and it must constantly find fuel. The ego's world is one of scarcity, specialness, and perpetual threat. It cannot conceive of a universe where giving and receiving are one, where love has no opposite. To the ego, such ideas are not just foreign, they are death. And here, the text introduces the alternative, the atonement or the correction. This is the Holy Spirit's answer to the tiny mad idea. If the separation was the choice to see ourselves as separate, the atonement is the choice to see ourselves as whole. It is not a process of penance, but of perspective. The Holy Spirit is depicted as the remaining communication link, the memory of our wholeness, preserved in our mind right beside the ego's raucous voice. His function is to reinterpret everything the ego has made. He does not destroy the world of form, but he changes its purpose. Under the ego's guidance, the world is a prison proving separation. Under the Holy Spirit's guidance, the same world becomes a classroom for forgiveness, a mirror showing us the blocks to love's awareness so we may release them. Thus, your life is not a mistake. Every relationship, every encounter, every challenge is now a perfectly tailored lesson in the curriculum of awakening. The person who irritates you is not an obstacle to your peace. They are the very means to achieve it, for they show you a pocket of unforgiveness within yourself that is ready to be healed. The Holy Spirit is the ultimate alchemist, using the lead of our conflicts to reveal the gold of our shared innocence. Your task is not to change the world, but to change your mind about the world, to bring each situation to this inner teacher and ask, how would you have me see this? What is this for? Innocent perception. Chapter 3 begins with a gentle but radical declaration. You have no idea of the tremendous release and deep peace that comes from meeting yourself and your brothers totally without judgment. The entire chapter is an unfolding of this single idea.
The ego's world is built on judgment as its fundamental tool for sorting reality, good from bad, desirable from repulsive, self from other. Judgment is the mechanism that maintains separation, for to judge is to assert that you are in a position to assess something outside yourself, reinforcing the subject-object split. The text invites us to consider a state so still, so unified, that the very impulse to judge arises from a misunderstanding of what we are seeing. It is not that we must become morally lax, it is that we are asked to recognize the inherent innocence of the mind behind the action. This innocence is not the superficial innocence of a child who does not know better. It is the profound metaphysical innocence of a son of God who has merely dreamed of sin. If the separation was an illusion, then nothing that seemed to happen within it actually occurred in reality. The guilt we carry is for a crime that was never committed. Our sense of sinfulness is the anchor holding the entire dream in place. Forgiveness, then, is the act of looking upon our own mistakes and the mistakes of others and saying with complete sincerity, "This has no real meaning." It is a call for love arising from a forgotten identity. To perceive innocence is to withdraw the projection of guilt, and in that withdrawal, the very energy that sustained the grievance dissolves, returning to the mind as peace. The text introduces here a crucial distinction between true perception and knowledge. True perception is the final forgiving state of the mind as it prepares for the return to knowledge. It is a state of corrected vision, where we see the world without the distortion of the past, without the label of guilt. Knowledge, however, is the state of pure, unmediated union that lies beyond perception entirely. We are working here in this world with perception. Our goal is to purify it, to strip it of all attack thoughts, until it becomes so transparent it serves as a clean window, not a stained glass mural of our fears. When perception is wholly cleansed, it simply ceases to be necessary, and what remains is knowledge itself. The ego's kingdom of specialness. As we move into Chapter 4, the lens sharpens on the specific strategies of the ego, and the text reveals them with the precision of a master psychologist. The ego's primary tool for maintaining the separate self is the concept of specialness. This is the belief that your value is comparative, that you gain worth by being more or less than someone else, more talented, more spiritual, more victimized, more knowledgeable. Specialness is the opposite of the equality inherent in God's creation. It is the demand for a unique identity carved out through relationships of special love or special hate. Both are two sides of the same coin, for they establish you as different, set apart, and therefore fundamentally alone. The text lays bare the inevitable trajectory of specialness. It begins with an attraction, a seeming fulfillment of a lack, but it always turns to fear, possessiveness, and finally disappointment or hatred. Why? Because the special relationship is a bargain, not a gift. It says, "I will love you if you meet my needs and affirm my special self." When the other person inevitably fails to play their assigned role perfectly, the love turns to blame. The ego then uses this betrayal as further proof that the world is hostile and you must defend your fragile self even more fiercely. It is a cycle of seeking salvation outside, finding it lacking, and deepening the very loneliness you sought to cure. But here, the Course performs its most profound alchemy. It does not ask you to abandon your relationships. It asks you to change their purpose. This is the transformation of special relationships into holy relationships. You bring the relationship to the Holy Spirit and say, in essence, I have used this person to prove I am separate. I now choose to use this relationship to remember we are one. The other person becomes your salvation partner. Every grievance, every moment of friction is no longer a reason to withdraw, but a sacred opportunity to practice forgiveness, to see past the ego's projections to the innocent mind you share. The relationship's form may change, or it may not, but its content is utterly reborn. It becomes a crucible for awakening, a small shared altar where the peace of God is invited to enter the world.
The illusions of the body. This leads to the ego's ultimate prop for the separate self, the body. Chapter 4 confronts this directly. The ego worships the body as the final, irrefutable proof that you are here, limited, vulnerable, and mortal. It is the tangible symbol of separation. Every ache, every desire, every pleasure and pain serves to keep your attention fixated on this fragile vessel, convincing you that this is what you are. The body's senses report a world of other separate bodies, of threats and temptations, and thus the cycle of perception is sealed. You believe you are a body, interpreting a world of bodies, and the thought of being something else becomes abstract, almost meaningless. The Course's teaching on the body is often misunderstood. It does not advocate neglect or ascetic punishment of the flesh. That would still be giving the body ultimate reality and fighting it on its own level. Instead, it asks for a shift in identity. The key instruction is practical. The body is merely a means of communication. It is a temporary instrument, a learning device in the dream. You can choose to let it be used by the ego to broadcast messages of separation, judgment, and fear through its actions and reactions, or you can choose to let it be used by the Holy Spirit to communicate messages of forgiveness, healing, and union. The body itself is neutral. The purpose you give it is everything. This is where the practice becomes intensely immediate. That tension in your shoulders, that flutter of anxiety in your stomach, the ego immediately weaves a story around them. You are stressed because of your job. You are afraid because of an uncertain future. The Holy Spirit's approach is different. He would have you recognize the sensation simply as a symbol of a choice you are making in your mind, the choice for fear over love, for separation over unity. Without judgment, you can then choose again. You can offer that tightness, that flutter, to the peace of God, not to magically erase it, though that may happen, but to change its meaning. The body becomes a feedback mechanism, not your master. You are not a leaf trembling in the wind of its sensations. You are the quiet space in which both the wind and the leaf appear. Healing and Wholeness. Chapter 5 is entitled Healing and Wholeness, and it serves as the practical culmination of all that has come before. It begins by addressing a question that must now be burning within. If the separation is an illusion, why is there pain? The text provides a startling answer. All healing is essentially the release from fear. Pain, in all its forms, is the shadow cast by the body when the mind chooses fear. It is not a punishment, but a natural consequence, a feedback signal so intense we cannot ignore it. Yet we have misunderstood the signal.
We believe the pain is telling us about a problem in the body or the world, when it is actually reporting on a condition of the mind. To heal, then, is not first to fix the body, but to address the mind's choice for fear. When the mind chooses peace, the body's health becomes irrelevant to your identity, and often, as a side effect, reflects that peace. This leads to one of the most liberating and oft-quoted sentences in the entire course: "I am never upset for the reason I think." This is not a mere platitude, it is a master key. Your anger at a delay, your hurt from a remark, your anxiety about finances, these are not caused by the world. They are caused by your mind's decision to see itself as vulnerable, attacked, and separate within that situation. The external event is simply the blank screen upon which your inner script of separation is projected. The healing happens the moment you withdraw the projection, the moment you pause and tell yourself, "My current feeling is showing me a belief in separation I am holding. This is not about the world, this is about my mind." In that instant, you have redirected the search for salvation from the chaotic outer world to the single still point of choice within. The text then deepens this by introducing the concept of the unhealed healer. This is anyone who attempts to give what they have not fully accepted for themselves. If I am offering you comfort while secretly believing in my own guilt, my comfort is tainted with that belief. True healing authority comes only from recognizing the Christ in yourself, the unbroken, innocent core of your being. You cannot give wholeness unless you are willing to receive it. This is why the Course's path is one of simultaneous giving and receiving. As you forgive your brother, you receive the proof of your own innocence. As you offer peace, you accept it. The healer and the healed are one. The giver and receiver are united in a single exchange of wholeness. Your brother's healing is your own, for you see in him the same sickness you are releasing in yourself, and in his freedom you witness your own. The function of the Holy Spirit. Having cleared the ground, Chapter 5 culminates in a beautiful description of the Holy Spirit's function. He is called the remedy, the communications link, the mediator. His role is not to rule over you, but to stand as a bridge between your state of fear and your state of knowledge. Think of your mind as a vast room. One corner is lit with the harsh, flickering light of the ego's projections, creating dramatic, fearful shadows. The rest of the room is in darkness. You believe the lit corner is all that exists. The Holy Spirit is like a gentle guide who first joins you in that corner, acknowledging your experience without judgment. Then he simply turns up a dimmer switch very slowly, illuminating a little more of the room. You see a chair you hadn't noticed, a window. The shadows lose their sharp terror. He does not force you to look at the light source. He just steadily increases the light until you yourself turn and see it was there all along. His curriculum is forgiveness, and his lessons are perfectly tailored. He uses your specific relationships, your unique fears, your personal history, not to reinforce them, but to undo them. He reinterprets everything. Where the ego saw an attack, he shows you a call for love. Where the ego saw a loss, he reveals an opportunity to gain peace. He asks for so little, your little willingness, your moment of doubt about the ego's interpretation. You give him a scrap of fear, a shred of grievance, and he holds it up to the light of truth, where it unravels into nothingness. You are not asked to do the unraveling yourself, for your hands are the ones that tied the knot. You are only asked to hand it over. This is the essence of true prayer in the Course. It is not a petition to a distant God to change the world for you. It is the quiet act of bringing your conflicted mind into alignment with the already present answer within. Prayer is a way offered by the Holy Spirit to reach God, the text says. It is the practice of stilling the ego's voice to hear the voice for God. It is the moment you stop telling the universe what you need and instead ask to be shown what you already have. In that surrender, you are not weakened, you are aligning with an infinite strength that has been holding you all along. The peace that follows may not change your circumstances, but it changes you in the midst of them, and from that changed center, all things are seen anew.
The integration, the end of the beginning. And so we arrive at the close of Chapter 5, and with it the foundational arc of the text. We have journeyed from the first principle of the miracle as a shift in perception, through the origin of the ego and the separation, into the revelation of innocence and the transformation of specialness, and finally to the practical mechanism of healing through the Holy Spirit. What has been built here is not a philosophical system to be admired, but a working toolkit for the dismantling of a world and the remembrance of a self. The text will now begin, in subsequent chapters, to apply this toolkit to increasingly subtle aspects of the mind, to the nature of time, to the dynamics of sacrifice, to the deep structures of sin and guilt. But the keys have all been given. You now know you are not the victim of the world you see. You know your feelings are faithful witnesses to your inner teacher of choice. You know there is another voice within that can reinterpret everything for peace. You know that to know yourself, Temet Nosce, is to cease identifying with the storyteller of separation and to rest, even momentarily, as the silent awareness in which the story is told. This is the end of the beginning. The map has been studied. The territory of your own mind lies before you. The journey from here is not one of distance, but of depth. It is the gentle, relentless application of these principles to every shadow that arises until no shadow remains and all that is left is light. The peace you seek has already begun its patient work in you, from the inside out. And so the map has been laid before you, not on parchment, but within the quiet space of your own awareness. These first steps on the path are the most crucial, for they turn you gently from the world of shadows toward the source of the light that casts them. Let this not be an end, but a true beginning. Carry a single idea from this sanctuary into your day, that you are never upset for the reason you think, and watch as the walls of your world begin to soften, becoming less a prison and more a doorway. Your journey inward is the only journey that has ever existed. All else is commentary. If this resonance of truth has found a home in you, if you feel the ancient pull toward remembering, then help this channel grow. Help us spread this message of quiet awakening. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so we may continue this walk together into the next chapters of the text, where the mind's training deepens into profound and lasting freedom. Your presence here is no accident. Drop a comment below and tell us which idea from today's exploration stirred something deep within you. Your share is a spark that helps illuminate the path for others. You are not a student of this course. You are the awakening it describes. Thank you for watching.